welcome back to Sunday Live. Welcome to the Talk Studio, where we have with us Senator Professor Kindiki Kithure and Majority Leader in the Senate, but also Senator of Tharaka, Nithi. And also, of course, having represented the Deputy President at the ICC, we have a lot to talk about. And thank you for joining us. Let's start with an accusation that's been made against you. And in the paper today, there's an article describing you and Kipchumba Murkomen actually as apologists for the most retrogressive orthodoxy. And this is obviously with reference to the position taken on the ICC and the Kenya pullout from the Rome Statute. So let me ask you this. What is the philosophy behind this? Are you an apologist?
I am not an apologist. I haven't been, and I will not be. I, however, respect the opinion that other people have about me as a public servant, a public officer, and I take no offense in those kind of remarks. But it worries me that in this country that there are few people who have hijacked the truth, and these are the people who will only brand you as a progressive or a reformer if only you say you take a certain line of thought. My position on the ICC, initially, by the way, I was very supportive of the International Criminal Court during its formation in 2002.
What changed?
Over time, the implementation of that system of the Rome Statute has proved to be beyond reasonable doubt, even over and above the Kenyan cases, that that statute is not a sustainable mechanism, it's not a legitimate mechanism for achieving universal international criminal justice. And
why is this? Let's zone in on your reasons for this.
Reasons are simple. One, of course, the entry point is our own country, Kenya. Everybody has witnessed a very embarrassing situation, which, of course, will end up most certainly with the acquittal of all the three Kenyans who are there. I can predict that. But the damage that the ICC has caused in this country is great. It has spoiled relationships. It has exposed a prosecution which is not supervised by anybody. And I think for us as a country, this is a time to reflect and see how going forward we can put more trust in our own systems of justice.
And whatever the case may be, and thank you for sharing your views with us, but this certainly was a justice mechanism that Kenya turned to willingly, and I think your brothers in the legislature ahead of you in the assembly voted in favor of doing this, supported the process. And so the big question now, and I think the biggest concern, because this should not be about current issues, this is really about a nation.
That's right.
And the question is, if not ICC, what justice mechanisms do we then turn to? And I still keep asking the question, for instance, about the people on the ground who are still living next to neighbors who raped and who plundered, who still have to deal with the pain, who may be willing to forgive and move on, but what mechanisms can we put in place?
Well, Julie, for me, I have never believed that the international criminal justice system should be the one and only mechanism that can heal post-traumatized societies like our country. We have believed in a mixed system of justice, where you have different tiers of different levels of justice. One, grassroots justice, which is communal, traditional, for low-key, small timers.
I keep going back to Gashasha courts, and exactly. It happened
precisely, in Rwanda. And it works wonders. Today you walk in Rwanda and you feel a sense of healing, a sense of post-trauma, settlement in that regard. Then you need also a different level of accountability, where you deal with the brokers, the middle people, middle cadres, people who have influence. They may not be so influential, but they have their own political spaces where they control the local people. And our argument is that you can have here, one, there are people you need to prosecute, but there are others who you can use alternative methods of punishment. I'll give you one example. There's a mechanism called lustration, where if you find I, as a politician, incited my constituents into violence, and jailing me would have negative effect on peace, then the best thing you do is to ban me from holding political office, let's say for 20 years. And this can be a deterrent without jeopardizing peace. And that so that you are left with very extreme cases for punishment. But in the circumstances, the ICC, in its formation, especially with regard to the prosecution, is not in a position even to have that residual justice achieved.
Let's talk then about the argument that the importance of the ICC was to ensure that politicians never again dare take Kenya back to the place where we were in 2007, 2008. We've talked about different mechanisms, alternative mechanisms that can be put in place. How do we then ensure that at senior levels of leadership, people are wary and careful about how they speak to the people?
Julie, I am convinced beyond doubt that it is not the indictments of Uhuru, Ruto and Sang that has made this country have a peaceful election, unlike what other people think. The ICC has indicted very senior politicians elsewhere. And in those countries where ICC has intervened, some of them have even become worse, because you perpetuate a cycle of violence, because people you arrest at high level have their own supporters. The reason why I think Kenya was peaceful is because we all agree we made a serious mistake. Number two, we had not seen what happened in 2007 coming, so there was a bit of shock by everybody, including our people in the villages. So the notion that ICC has saved us from any mess is a notion that is not scientific. But having said that, I want to say, actually, that going forward, there will be need for a reformed International Criminal Court. Because basically the judges... Another ICC. And by the way, it took 50 years to negotiate the current statute. The negotiation of the International Criminal Court statute began in 1946 and was only achieved in 1998. And can ICC
remain in place if Africa
Not in the current form, because you have a rogue prosecutor who is not accountable to anybody. He arrests at will, and even after he does whatever damage he causes, there is no accountability. For example, in the local systems of justice, Julie, you have something called a remedy called prosecuting a prosecutor for malicious prosecution. If a prosecutor exercises unreasonably their discretion, they prosecute you. If you are acquitted, you can sue them. In the ICC, there is nothing like that.
I think, Kindiki, the quality of work done by the prosecutor will definitely be determined in the weeks to come.
But we are already seeing...
Last week was a false start of sorts, but we'll be watching.
Precisely.
We'll be watching to see the quality of work. And I move you on slightly to the fact that Kenyans, the National Assembly has made its voice heard, and the process has already kicked off. We've got now next steps. What happens if we've said the pullout is happening?
Three levels. The first level is Kenyan. We have made our position known to the executive. So the Attorney General and the Cabinet Secretary for Foreign Affairs should take action. And there is a mistaken belief that what Parliament passes in terms of motion cannot be implemented. And I think people who think that should read our Constitution afresh. And we believe that as representatives of the people, the executive must act on the resolution and start the process of withdrawal of Kenya from the Rome Statute. That is level one. Level two, we have to do a bit of international politics, because unlike local laws and lawmaking, international lawmaking is a political process. It's influenced by international politics. So we need at the regional level, at the African Union, to lobby as many of our friends as possible to support the position taken by Kenya. On 12th and 13th of October, the African Union has an extraordinary summit to discuss Kenya. And then after that, of course, we will take this to the global scene. The whole issue is really not to undermine the court. The whole issue is to say, if this court has to be believed to continue being the instrument of achieving international justice, it has to be reformed, especially to hold the prosecution accountable. But a quick one, Julie. I think the reasons we are giving are not idle. And I don't know why people are seeing this as a unique thing for Kenya. America signed the Rome Statute and pulled out after 2 years, giving the same reasons that we are giving today. That there is no accountability to ensure that our citizens...
You're a rogue nation that needs to be controlled, perhaps.
That's what they believe, and they're entitled. We believe the opposite. We believe they are a rogue nation themselves, because we have some of their leaders who have committed atrocities world over without any accountability.
Having said that,
but they're entitled to their opinion about our country.
Let me move you away now from the ICC, and the reason why I do that is the cost of living in this country is escalating beyond the wildest imagination of many Kenyans. And so as we are going through this process, and a lot of effort is being paid, you know, on the pullout from the ICC by the political class, Kenyans are asking, who cares about the fact that I'm paying so much for flour? I'm paying so much more for maize. How am I expected to survive on the salary that I was earning a few months ago and feed my family? And Kindiki, these are very real issues. What is your level of leadership doing to address this?
Three things. One, Julie, I think it's now agreed that what has happened in terms of the effects of the VAT Act on consumers is something that was not foreseen. We had economic advice that there will be no effect. For example, we were informed that the kind of items that fell into that bracket, there was a way in which economists would explain and say it will not have a final effect on consumers. As Jubilee government, we want to review that law, and actually on Tuesday, myself and Adan Duale and our key members in the House Business Committee, the Jubilee side, having a meeting to review the sentiments that have come with a view of seeing what remedial measures, legislative measures that can be done.
So urgent steps can be taken,
very
and Kenyans
urgent.
can expect some kind of reprieve? In fact,
immediately after that meeting, which I don't want to preempt, but I think we will be proposing that the Jubilee side, in both houses, should sponsor, you know, the motion on VAT as a matter of national importance, and let nobody be hypocritical and pretend to be, you know, there are people who believe they have the copyright of speaking about things that affect wananchi. We are very cognizant of our duty as government, and we are listening, and we are willing to review even policy statements which we have taken already.
Thank you. Our time is up, and that being the case, then we just ask as Kenyans, I think I can speak on behalf of millions who say, let's see action then. Let's see action, and crying for action, particularly on the prices of food and other basic commodities.
Julie, you can take this to the bank, and Kenyans can trust that we'll do our job well. When we had issues with the Division of Revenue Bill, we made our position very clear, extremely clear. So let's not think or imagine that we are doing politics. Watch this space.
Thank you. Professor Kindiki Kithure, the Senate Majority Leader, says you can take it to the bank that the Jubilee government is going to do something about that. And we're talking about the prices of basic commodities. So let's see what happens this week. Thank you so much for making time for us. In just